Hey Amber, it's good to see you again.
Nice to be back.
It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and yeah, just your energy is really, really infectious. So I'm really looking forward to talking with you this time about what is usually my side of the pond, although right now I'm in North America myself, but BLK UK has officially launched. But before we get into it, please, please, please do reintroduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Amber Cooper. I'm the head of brand for BLK. I am not British and I'm not in the UK. I'm in America, but have absolutely loved the work that BLK is doing across the pond. So excited to talk about it today.
Amazing, amazing. And I think that's a perfect place for us to start. So you've officially launched in the UK, and I'm curious about why you picked the UK and why you felt now was the time to make that happen.
Yes. So we do a lot of research here at BLK, and what we discovered was Black singles are just tired. Like, no matter where you are in the world, we're tired. So when we found those similarities with the US users and the UK potential users, we were like, it was kind of like a no-brainer. People are exhausted. It's the having to explain yourself and nuances within your culture. And I think something that's so special with the UK specifically is there's so much pride in your culture and your nationality and your ethnicity. So it was kind of like a no-brainer for BLK to launch in the UK, and it's been beautiful to see its growth since.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I know that when I first interacted with the BLK team and collaborated with you guys, I did an event last year in New York, which was really, really, really fun. And that was called Black Love White Flags. And I remember I didn't want to be that person who talks about something that they haven't experienced, but I know that I had to be in the US to use the app. So I'm like, oh, but it's good now that that's
Yeah.
changed. And now you don't have to buy a VPN to be able to see what's
Yes,
on.
you don't have to use a VPN. You can go straight to your app or Google Play Store,
I
and we are
love
right
it.
there for you. Yes.
We love that. We love that. So yeah, congratulations on the expansion. And so as part of some of the discussions and research that you did, what was your approach to understanding the cultural nuances? Because yes, it's so true that there are similarities between Black British and Black American culture, especially when it comes to dating. We're all tired, but I'm curious about how you've taken into account the cultural differences that we have.
Yeah, I think more so the differences, it was the similarities. So, I think the differences, that's just depending on where you are. But I think the commonalities that we saw are things like Black joy, what they're looking for. They're looking for their partner, they're looking for their teammate. We found that, when our users from our community use other apps, they're finding that they have to explain themselves more. Why do you have braids in one of your photos and you have a sew-in in another photo? And that can get really exhausting for both men and women, just always having to constantly explain themselves instead of using that energy to just getting to know one another. So, our users find when they're on other apps, you have to explain yourself first, then you can get to know each other. And then by the time you get to that step, you're tired. It fizzles out, it goes away. On BLK, we love being that space for the Black community, for our people, where they can just come, be yourself. You feel like you're home. Um, and bringing that joy back. Like I said, Black joy is a big pillar in our community, so we want to be that space, we want to be that joy. So that is what really drove us to launching in the UK.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, Black love and Black joy ought to be synonymous. So I'm really, really glad that you guys have created that for us because, oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
stories that I have heard.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned stories because there's no one story. Just like for African Americans, here in the States, there's no one story for us. And that's also something that we discovered when we were doing our research and launching in the UK. There's no one Black British story. And just kind of going on about that, like we work with Black British consultants and freelancers and creators to tell that side of the story. I can't tell it. As you can tell, I have an American accent. So It's beautiful just even collaborating in that way, learning from one another. And I think when you can truly learn from one another, it energizes you versus always having to explain yourself and drain your tank. So it's been such a fun ride, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
I love that. I love that. And so I'd love to talk more with you about the context in which BLK is seeking to fill in the gaps here in the dating scene. And some of the research that you referenced was around dating fatigue. So, what is it that BLK does, or what is it about BLK that, besides the obvious, being a exclusively Black dating app, but what is it that BLK does to design an experience that minimizes or removes altogether that intense emotional labor that can sometimes lead to fatigue with dating?
Yeah, I think where BLK steps in is yes, apps help you find someone, right? Or find people. The difference with BLK is it depends on it emphasizes where you're finding those people. So like I said, you can be on other apps using other brands, but your experience could be really draining because like I said, you're having to go through so many layers of explaining yourself, making sure you're not fetishized, making sure you're not someone's experience versus BLK, you're truly just home. You're with people who get it, you're with people who want it and kind of crave that same connection at the end of the day, making it more seamless, like lighthearted, more lighthearted for our users. And we want them to be happy. We want them to know here's where you find love, here's where you find connection. Not so much, here's where you find being fetishized, here's where you find being an experience. So I think that's the difference. And again, just showing up unapologetically Black. Like, you don't have to tone down anything about yourself and you don't have to mask anything about yourself because we get it. Like I said, we just get it. We're storytellers at heart. And so when you can share that story, those commonalities and kiki and bounce off of each other and relate to things, it's just fun. It's a space to really just feel like you're home. And that's what we want. We want people when they open the BLK app, they're like, oh yeah, this is it. This is for me. Even if the profiles aren't it right away, the app itself and the brand and what we cater, it's it.
I love that. I love that. And that's definitely an important distinction because, yeah, some people always complain about, the quality of the profiles on any of these apps. But I think, other apps, they make you pay to, for example, limit the kind of people that you get shown to and match with, especially when it comes to like dating within your culture and your community. So yeah, I think BLK is definitely a lifesaver in that off the cuff,
Good.
everybody's Black.
Yes,
That
that's what we
makes a
love.
huge difference.
Yes.
And so I know recently you guys have put out a guide with tips for navigating dating, as we approach Valentine's Day. And I think some of the phrases that have been used in your publications are things like pre-qualifying, ghostlighting, community cuffing. Can you speak a bit more about some of those tips and what those phrases mean?
Yeah, so we came out with our 2026 dating trends and it's just fun vocabulary words if you shall. So it's like community cuffing. So, do you meet people in the same communities where you frequent? If you're fitness, if you're into art, if you're into pottery, do you find yourself meeting people in those environments? And also connecting with people with those same interests and who would, be at those same environments IRL on the app. And I think what's really fun is seeing how relatable it is. So it's like faith fishing. So it's like, do you only seek people, who share the same faith or the same level of religion or spirituality? So it's kind of like figuring out what works for you and the pre-qualifications. Gen Z is all about not wasting their time, so they want to know as much as possible. So yeah, it was so fun this year with the trend specifically because it's so realistic. And it's like, do you match the same aesthetic? Those songs that you're putting on your social media stories, do I like those songs? If I do, we might get along. So I think it's a lot of steps that daters are taking more seriously now, ahead, or not no necessarily ahead, but also, alongside of their getting to know someone, connecting, talking to see if they really like that person and if that's someone that they want to give their energy to.
I love that. Immediately, I'm so like, yeah, check, check, check. This ticks all the boxes because I've never heard a phrase like faith fishing, and that is hilarious to me. But then
Yes,
I
I
just
was.
love how we can just create our own lingo around this
Yes.
as well. No, that's beautiful. And yeah, I'm also curious to hear about more of why you think that, especially Black singles, they're prioritizing alignment, safety, reciprocity. Like, what is it about our times or just, I don't know, the last maybe 5, 10 years? What is it about this time in history where our generation, or let's say our generation, I'm a millennial, I'm not Gen Z, but young single people, what is it about now?
Nowadays, daters really prioritize clarity, knowing what do we both want from the start? Do you align with my future short-term, long-term goals? And it's kind of like if that's not the case, they go their separate ways, no bad blood, it's all good. Versus I feel like maybe older generations, because it's like you had to be married by a certain age. You had to like check off all of these milestones before the age of 30, where it's kind not to say they settled, but it's just like, hey, I might not agree with your values or, your outlook on this, but you check off two of my other boxes, so I'll just stick with you versus like, no. And I think also this generation of daters is they're much more protective of their peace. Like if you are not communicating in the way I'm communicating, they're like, bye. Or if you aren't doing something I want to do, they have no problem saying bye. I also think that's such a beautiful thing because protecting your peace is difficult. I don't know many people who can be like, protecting my peace is easy. But I think being very particular and having that standard for themselves is really getting them where they want to be relationship wise and just overall connection. It's been really cool to see that both romantically and platonically. I have a little like advice column, and you don't really see too much like friendship tea. And if they do, their conflict resolution is so far beyond other generations because again, they protect their peace, they want clarity. Um, in choosing standards over struggling. Like they don't want to be miserable. It's like if you are not adding to my cup, you cannot be near my cup. And I really applaud them. Yes, literally. So I love that.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. And I think what was coming to mind was it's somewhat a reaction, but a correction to the mistakes of, previous generations. We've seen, Auntie so and so stay in a relationship or marriage
Exactly.
longer than she ought to have because of, you know, keeping up appearances and,
Exactly.
just staying for the sake of staying rather than acknowledging that, you know, this relationship, the way it started, wasn't healthy. You two weren't aligned, you grew apart, and it's made for a toxic household situation. So I'm
Yeah.
seeing it in the context of the intergenerational elements, and it's kind of part of our healing, I guess, to
Yeah.
unlearn the habits of our elders and to try and do better by choosing better.
Yep.
So that's a
And I
lot of what
think
I'm
they're
hearing.
just overall happier, just reiterating everything that you just said so beautifully. And I think they're just overall happier. And, they're able to invest more in themselves and their mental health and their emotional well-being. And they're really reluctant to let anyone come and disturb that. And I applaud them.
Period. As they should be.
Period. Yes.
Well, I would just love to round off the conversation by asking you what Black love means to you personally.
Oh, I could be on this interview for the next week talking about Black love. I think Black love means respect. I think it means consideration. I think it means safety. And, I think communication, effort, all of that is like bare minimum. But yes, that falls under Black love. But I think whenever I meet people and they truly feel safe, man or woman, in their relationship, I think that's the most beautiful thing. That is a space that is home for them, that is a space for them to be happy, to be sad, to be vulnerable, to be angry, to be anxious. And I think it's so rare in our community to easily find that. And so seeing that foster with so many relationships on BLK, I think it's so beautiful. And I think it's so inspiring to the younger generations. You know, we speak to them a lot. And when they see millennials, I know we're probably older than them, but when they see millennials, like you said, unlearning things from their parents and correcting and setting examples for themselves, it truly is inspiring for the Gen Z generation. And I think we just need to share more of that. I'm big on sharing success stories. I want to meet you in real life. I want to post you on Instagram. I want the wedding invites. I want the baby shower pictures. So I think just setting more examples and not being afraid to show love. You know, people can deem, especially Black people, like Black men, if you're too outwardly affectionate, you're corny. And a lot of people are saying, no, I'm not. I'm safe. I'm happy. I'm at home. Y'all are gonna know it. And I think that is so beautiful. So yes, I can go on and on, but Black love it's just some tea in the most beautiful way.
I love that. I love that. And I guess that's a perfect segue into the last and probably one of the most important questions, which is what would you say to the Black single who has stepped away from dating because it just feels too painful, too exhausting, or too unsafe?
I think one, it takes a lot of courage to step away, to both step away and to come back. I think it takes courage no matter what your decision is. I hope that people who have chosen to step away, that they change their lens. You know, if you had a bad interaction with one person, that's only one person. Yes, that person could have really impacted you in the way that you think and feel, but I encourage you to try to remember that that was just one person, just like you're one person. And I think, um, you know, it can be exhausting. I'm not going to say dating a bunch of people and getting hurt time and time again. That's not exhausting. But I hope that people, daters, can see it as like you're truly one step closer to finding your true match. And, you know, some people get it right on their first date and some people just have to continue dating, but don't let that be discouraging because while you're on your journey, you're figuring out what you like, you're figuring out what you don't like, you're figuring out what your standards are, you're figuring out, you know, something that I didn't care about is my number one priority for myself. So take that as a chance to truly learn yourself. And when you are ready to come back to dating, you are in the driver's seat and you are in control. And I want you, if this is reaching someone, I want you to come back with the utmost confidence because what you bring to the table, if that person's just not worthy, just know like you are in that right to be like, you're not for me. And then you go find the next person will be okay for you. I promise they're on there. But you know, it is hard, it is difficult, but I hope that daters who are confused, are feeling discouraged or, you know, hurt from whatever in life, um, they know that someone's out there for them and they just have to put themselves out there a little more, but do it, you know, at your own pace. There's no right or wrong way to dating, how to date. You just have to figure out what's right for you. And I just tell everyone, own it. Like there's no right or wrong way. So it's your way, and that's the right way.
Powerful. It takes just one to win, guys. You
Just
heard it.
one.
That is
Yes.
the message. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me, Amber. Always a pleasure. And yeah, you guys heard, go and download BLK,
Yes.
especially if you're in the UK, because it's
Mhm.
open to us now.
Yep. Finally. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.